Dimensions of the Daf with Rabbi Mordechai Becher on JBS is made possible in part by the B.L. Manger Foundation in memory of Ben Manger.
Hi, I am Mordechai Becher. Welcome to Jewish Broadcasting Service, Dimensions of the Daf, in which we explore ideas in the Talmud, ideas in Jewish law and thought and philosophy and custom and ethics, etc., from the perspective of traditional Jewish sources, primarily the Talmud. Each episode is a quantum unit. You do not need continuity, although not a bad idea to watch. Anyway, today we are looking at a verse which I would say virtually any Jewish member of my audience certainly knows this verse in the Torah, Deuteronomy 6, verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And as I'm sure you know, this is one of the first verses that a Jewish child learns. Almost any Jewish kid is going to learn Shema Yisrael from the moment they can speak. And they can hear, they're listening, and they can hear Shema Yisrael. And it is also one of the last things that a Jew says. Many people say this, and many people have said this before they died. Daniel Pearl, before he was murdered by Muslim terrorists, declared that I am a Jew, and he said Shema Yisrael. And it's the first and the last thing that for many Jews we say. And it's a very significant verse. Let's examine it in more detail. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. As you can see, it's actually the preamble. It's the first sentence of paragraphs that we actually say every day, twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. Jews who pray will say this every single day, morning and evening, and a third time before we go to sleep in bed. And we say, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. These words which I command you this day shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children and talk with them when you sit in the house, when you walk in the way, when you lie down, when you rise up. What it's saying is this idea, these ideas of Torah, the oneness of God, the uniqueness of God, the love of God, they should be with us all the time. Teach it to our children, talk about it when we're on the way, talk about it when we get up in the morning, talk about it when we go to sleep at night. Bind them as a sign upon your arm, and they should be frontlets between your eyes. Tefillin, this black square leather boxes that we wear in the morning, right there with a strap there, and also on our arm, to indicate that the Torah is bound to our actions, indicated by the arm, to our thoughts, indicated by the head, and by our senses, indicated by its position between the eyes. So that we indicate this idea that the Torah and these ideas are with us always. And not only that, you shall write them upon the doorpost of your house. Jewish homes have a mezuzah, and on that mezuzah it's a scroll which is attached to the doorpost inside a container. And in that scroll, it says this Shema. It says, Hear, O Israel, Lord is our God, Lord is one. So think about it. This is the first verse that many, many Jewish children hear in their life. This is the last verse that Jews say before they die, whether it's a martyr's death or a natural death, etc. This is a verse that we teach to our children, that we say every morning and every evening and before we go to sleep. It's a verse that we tie in our arms and our heads, and it's a verse that we write on the doorposts of our home. So obviously, this is incredibly, incredibly central, incredibly, incredibly important. What is the significance of it? And actually, if you have a look on the next page, the Siddur, Jewish prayer book, we say before and after prayers also that which is implied by this verse, which is, I believe with perfect faith that the Creator, blessed be his name, is unique, or some translate it is one. There is no uniqueness like him in any manner, like his in any manner, that he alone is our God, He was, he is, and he will be. And there is a beautiful poem called Yigdal, in which a lot of people sing, some before, some after prayers. And it says, he is one, there is no unity like his. He is invisible, and his unity is infinite. So both that phrase, I believe with perfect faith, and that poem are both actually based on Maimonides. In his commentary on the Mishnah, in the 10th chapter of Sanhedrin, Maimonides wrote what he called the 13 principles of belief or of knowledge that every Jew must know. If you want to be a good, devoted member of the Jewish people, Maimonides says, you've got to know these 13 things. If you don't know them, not a good thing. So that's why they were actually shortened and put into Hebrew, because he wrote it in Arabic originally, and put into the Siddur. That's why a poem was made out of them. But a lot of people do know, and I want to look at the original, not to worry, it'll be in English, not Arabic, but the original, how Maimonides puts it. He says the following. In Maimonides' commentary on the Mishnah, Sanhedrin, and this is the second principle. First principle is belief in God. Principle 2, the Creator is one and is totally unique. His unity is not the same as the unity of a category. You know, for instance, we talk about one species, but every species has many individual animals. So it's not that type of one. He's not similar to one object or body, because an object can be divided into different components. A body can be subdivided into many parts: the skeleton, the organs, the limbs, the soul, the intellect, so on and so forth. His unity is not even the same as the number one, because the number one can be divided into fractions. So when we say that God is one, what we mean by that is he is uniquely one. God is unique in his oneness, which cannot be compared to anything else at all. This principle is based on the verse, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." And this idea of God's unity is, of course, what we call in English monotheism. Mono, one, theos, God, monotheism, belief in one God. But it's much more than belief in one God as opposed to many gods. That's clear. Many belief in multiple gods, that's what we call idolatry, paganism, polytheism, many, theos, gods, polytheism, many gods. That's not what this verse is railing against. We don't believe in polytheism. Of course, we believe there's only one God, but it's more than that. What we believe is that God, who is the only God, is also absolute oneness, cannot be subdivided into parts. And why is that important? So one of the earliest pagan religions was Zoroastrianism, which believed in a God of good and a God of bad. And, you know, you can understand those early pagans, they looked at the world and they saw what they thought were forces in conflict. They saw good, they saw evil, day, night, cruelty, kindness, etc. And they came to the conclusion that all of this cannot come from one source. It's got to come from multiple sources. And if there's good and evil, that means there must be a force of good and a force of evil, and they're in conflict with each other. Sometimes one wins, sometimes the other wins. Zoroastrianism, Taoism, what people call dualism, the idea that there are forces that oppose each other. Later on, Gnosticism, and that these forces that oppose each other, and you can see this in movies like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, etc., where there's the good side and the dark side, they're always in conflict and so on and so forth. Judaism says all comes from one source: light and darkness, good and apparent evil, kindness, cruelty, everything comes from one source. There is one God who is the origin and source of absolutely everything. Because we believe that everything comes from one source, that means everything can ultimately be harmonized. It doesn't have to always be us, them, me, you, light, darkness, evil, etc., etc. We believe in monotheism. That means everything comes from one source. And because of that, our attitude towards the world is supposed to be very, very different from a pagan. Everyone is God's creature. Everyone is created, sustained, formed by God. Everything in nature. We don't look at anything in nature as extraneous, as unnecessary, as negative. There's a purpose for everything. Do we always know the purpose? No. Do we always figure out the purpose? No. Very often, as we advance, we begin to realize more and more purpose in more and more things. But Judaism comes from the standpoint that everything has a purpose because everything comes from one God. As the verse says, Mi yitain tahor mitameh, who can give purity from impurity? Halo echad hu, is it not the one God? Because he is one God and the origin and the source of everything, there are no two opposing forces. That means that goodness can come from negatives. That means that purity can come from impurity. It's a very refreshing and beautiful view of things. And not only that, but the idea that everything has a oneness means that, let's take, for example, science. An ancient pagan polytheist may have been some island in the Pacific somewhere, nothing against island in the Pacific. I mean, I'm from Australia, but they may have witnessed a earthquake, a volcano explosion, and a tsunami. And the ancient pagan would have said the earthquake is because the god of the god of the earth is upset. We overplanted the crops, and hence there's an earthquake. And they may have said that the reason there's a tsunami is because the god of the sea is upset that we took too many fish, didn't throw money back. And the volcano is upset because we didn't throw enough ladies into the volcano last Thursday. And so they wouldn't have connected these things. They see things as separate. The beauty of monotheism, much like modern science, is that it sees a string connecting everything. So a scientist would look at the tsunami, the earthquake, and the volcano and say, guess what? Tectonic plate activity. Earth's crust, pressures, movement, etc., and that creates all three. And I think, and Maimonides actually says this, that the foundation of all wisdom is to know that there's one God, because the knowledge that there is one God means that I will begin to look for oneness and unity in the world. And the foundation of so much of science is the search for the line that connects things, the oneness and the unity. Listen to the words of Albert Einstein, who wrote, "Science can only be created by those who are thoroughly imbued with the aspiration towards truth and understanding. This source of feeling springs from the sphere of religion. In this, there also belongs faith in the possibility that the regulations valid for the world of existence are rational, that is, comprehensible to reason. Without belief in the uniformity of nature, no theoretical formula of universal character could be established." Einstein, echoing unknowingly, but echoing Maimonides, understands that unless you have a basic belief that things are going to make sense, what's the use of even investigating them? There has to be an understanding that the world makes sense. As he wrote in a letter to a friend of his, Maurice Solovine, he wrote to him, he says, "The most incomprehensible thing about the universe is its comprehensibility." The most incomprehensible thing about the universe is its comprehensibility. The fact that we can understand it is surprising. If you're a monotheist, it's not surprising because there's one God behind everything. If one God behind everything, then we can assume uniformity. We can assume it makes sense. We can assume rationality. We can find the thread that ties the things together, the tsunami, the earthquake, and the volcano. And therefore, for us, monotheism is the center of all of wisdom, the foundation of all of our understanding, and the foundation of our ethics as well. There is one God. It's not like I can play one God against another or play even off one aspect of God versus another. There is no time, there is no place, and there is no area of life in which I am not liable, obligated to, and devoted to God, because there is no area where he is not all powerful. It's not like God only controls the good, not the evil, only the evil, not the good, etc., or only daytime and not nighttime. No, from the Jewish perspective, it's absolutely a universal one God. The evil inclination, which is known in Tanakh as Satan. Satan in Hebrew means opponent. But you see, the opponent has been hired by God. The opponent is not anything with independent force. You know what it's like? It's like if I am doing, if I'm a boxer, MMA, mixed martial arts fighter, you might hire someone to spar with you, a sparring partner. The sparring partner, right, is not out to kill you. The sparring partner is doing his job, which is to provide you the practice, right, and the real life experience of overcoming an adversary. That's exactly what the evil inclination is. It's not an independent power. In Judaism, we see nothing has an independent power other than God. Only God is completely and purely independent, nothing else. And so the essence of monotheism is expressed in this verse, Shema, Hear, O Israel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem our God, Hashem Echad. He is absolute oneness and unity. Nothing else. And no components to him, so to speak. No divisions, no different persons, just one God. And for this reason, Jews throughout the centuries have rejected any compromise on that. And we've rejected compromises on it to the extent of even giving up our lives rather than compromise on that. Whether it was the Inquisition or the Crusades or the Inquisition, whether it was various times in history, whether it was under Persians or Romans or Greeks, etc. Any of these times, Jews were not prepared to give up on absolute monotheism, the uniqueness of God. Echad, one, Yachid, only one, Miyuchad, the special one, special, uniquely one. If we look at the next page, Rashi writes something interesting, that in that verse says, God, our God is one. And he says this, the Lord who is now our God and not the God of the other peoples of the world, because other peoples of the world reject, many, not all, but many have rejected God. They're idolaters, pagans, atheists, etc. He will at some future time be the one God, sole God. In other words, in this verse, we are also expressing the hope that everyone in the world will recognize that there is one God. By the way, and we should not be confused here. We are not praying that everyone will become Jewish. That's not the goal. The goal is, though, that everyone should be a monotheist. We certainly hope and pray that everyone in the world will come to recognition of there being one God. They don't have to be Jewish to do that. Muslims are monotheists. They believe in one God. Most Christians are monotheists. They believe in one God. I have a friend in India, lives in the footsteps of the Himalayan mountains. He tells me that he thinks that Hindus also at the core are monotheists. They just believe there's many intermediaries, and this is also a point of contention, because we do not believe that there are intermediaries. We believe we have a direct connection to God alone. So that's an area of contention between the two of us. We're still friends, but I want to point out that we don't pray that people should be Jewish, but we do pray that everyone should be a monotheist and believe in this idea of one God. And that's how Rashi understands this verse. Now, there's a fascinating explanation given by Or HaChaim, written by Reb Chaim Ibn Attar, a 19th century Kabbalist and Torah scholar from Morocco. He says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. He says, why didn't it just write, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one? Why does it repeat, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one? Right? It would have been a more efficient way of writing it. I think my English teacher, Mr. Retchford, would have crossed this out. He would have said, a much more efficient way of writing this, keep it short, right? Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. Instead, it says, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Why the repetition? So listen carefully to what the Or HaChaim says. He says, look, there's two aspects of our relationship with God. Number one, he is our God. Number two, he is one. And he says what that means is this. Even if there will be alternatives, theoretically, not possible, but even if, we would still choose God as our God because he is good, because of his perfection, because of his kindness, his love, etc. He says, and also the fact is he is one. There is only one God. He says, but you see, if it would be expressed as, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one, that might sound like that we attach ourselves to God because there's no alternative. nothing else to choose. Right, which is true, there is no alternative. But he's saying what we're trying to express here is that even if there would be an alternative, we would choose God, number one. And number two, there is nothing else other than God. So he says we're encapsulating, that's why the repetition of the phrase, Hear, O Israel, Lord is our God, meaning we choose him and we attach ourselves to him, even if there would be alternatives, which there isn't. And then we say, Hashem Echad, the Lord is one, as a way of saying that there is nothing else, there are no alternatives. Very interesting explanation in which we're saying we're declaring our allegiance to God, both because we recognize him as being worthy of our allegiance, whatever may happen, and secondly, because we also recognize that he is the one God and the only God. So that's an emphasis much more, not on the uniqueness of his oneness, as Maimonides emphasized, but it's an emphasis on our allegiance to him because of his perfect nature and because of his oneness and uniqueness and being only God. And Rashi saw in this verse not only a declaration of allegiance and a declaration of belief, as Maimonides saw it, but he saw it also as a prayer that Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem, who's now our God, we have a special relationship with, Hashem Echad, we hope that he'll be the one God of the whole world and of all nations. Another idea, the final idea here, is the Talmud in Gemara in Psachim. The Talmud quotes a verse in Zechariah 4, great prophet Zechariah. He writes the following. He says, V'haya Hashem lamelech al kol haaretz, God will be king over the whole world. He's expressing the hope that in messianic times, God will be king over the whole world. By Yomahu, on that day, Yihyeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad. God will be one and his name will be one. So the Talmud is extremely bothered by that verse. Listen to what Zechariah said. By Yomahu, on that day, God will be one and his name will be one. So the Gemara asks, Atu ha'idna? Nowadays, is he not one? What do you mean? On that day, he'll be one and his name will be one. How could you say such a thing? How could Zechariah let those words come out of his mouth? It almost sounds like Zechariah is saying that in our present situation, God is not one. Chas v'sholom, God forbid. So what does he mean? So two opinions in the Gemara. The first opinion, Rav Acha bar Chanina, he says, look, what Zechariah is saying here is the following, that nowadays, we don't always see that everything that happens is good. If we knew that everything came from God with absolute clarity, we'd recognize everything as good. He says, but because we live in a situation where that is obscured from our vision, we are in the pre-messianic times. He says, therefore, we say a different blessing for good things and bad things. We see certain things as not good. He says, but the truth is, if we'd really be imbued in us a complete, absolute confidence that everything is from God, we wouldn't see anything as bad. He says, but that's not possible in our present situation. We're just not there yet. He says, what Zechariah, the prophet, is hoping that in the future, and he's predicting that in the days of the Messiah, we'll have such clarity that we'll see everything as coming from God. We will see nothing as being negative because we understand that everything comes from God. That's the first explanation. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak gives another explanation. He says, in Jewish tradition, we do not pronounce the name of God. The name of God, as it's written, if you look in the Torah, it is written as Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. 4 letters, Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey. Now, you might know that we Jews do not pronounce that name ever. Instead, we say Adonai, which means my God or our God or God. And so we pronounce the name of God differently than the way it's written. And so what Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says is this: in our present world, we don't read the name of God the way it is written. We read it as Adonai, even though it's written as Yud Hey and Vav Hey. He says, in the world to come, meaning in the messianic times, we will pronounce the name of God the way it is written. It's a strange, and that's what Zechariah means. On that day, God will be one and his name will be one, meaning we'll pronounce his name as the name God with a Yud Hey and a Vav Hey. It's a very interesting and strange idea. So this is how it is understood by a number of our commentaries, primarily Rabbi Yeshaya Halevi Horowitz, a 18th century Kabbalist from Frankfurt on Main. And he says the following. He says, our perception of God now is not accurate. We are surrounded by space and time and ego. We have lots of interference. We have lots of static, lots of stuff going on in the world and in our lives that gives us incorrect perceptions and understandings of God. And to express the discrepancy between God in his essence and our understanding, we pronounce his name differently than the way it's written. We express that discrepancy between reality and perception by, we see the name of God written as Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, but we pronounce it Aleph Daled Nun Yud Adonai. He says, however, in the Messianic times, in the future, and we're getting closer and closer, he says, our perception and reality will become closer and closer. And he says, how do we express when our perception and reality are one and the same, when we actually perceive things as they're properly supposed to be understood? We'll pronounce God's name exactly the way it's written. Nowadays, we say it differently than the way it's written to represent the discrepancy between our perception and reality. But in the days of the future, in the future world, when the perception and the reality will be one and the same, so we'll pronounce the name the way it's written. In those days, and then, as Zechariah says, on that day, Hashem Echad, God will be one, and his name will be one. It's not referring, God, of course, is always one, but he and his name, meaning the pronunciation and the way it's written, will be one. So we have a few ideas about the beautiful, and by the way, I've only scratched the surface. There's a lot more to be said about that verse, Shema. If you look in the commentaries, there's pages and pages of commentaries on that one verse in Deuteronomy 6, verse 4. And there's entire books written about that one verse, and it's discussed by Kabbalists, by philosophers, etc. Very famous verse. And as I said, the first verse very often that we learn, the last verse that we say, and really the verse which encapsulates the essence of Judaism as monotheism. In Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see, actually, I have explanations of this in my book, Gateway to Judaism, which is available. Amazon, online sellers, Barnes & Noble, Jewish bookstores, etc. And thank you for watching Jewish Broadcasting Service. I look forward to speaking to you next time. And give me a shout out if you see me somewhere, although that's unlikely because I'm stuck in my study here in New Jersey. But nevertheless, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Dimensions of the Daf with Rabbi Mordechai Becher on JBS is made possible in part by the B.L. Manger Foundation in memory of Ben Manger. We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, Post Office Box 360, Stamford, Connecticut 06904. Or you can call the JBS Pledge Line at 833-MY-JBS-TV. That's 833-695-2788. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. We thank you for your kind support.